All right. Welcome to WGU's inaugural National Intern Day. Thank you so much for joining us for our session today with Emerson. My name is Hong Nguyen, and I'm a part of the Careers and Professional Development team. Specifically, I serve as the Employer Relations Partner here at WGU. We get to connect great employers to our students and vice versa. For today's event, we'll learn more about Emerson's internship program to help you develop your skills and advance your career. We also have a variety of other sessions today, along with different events offered every week, and you can find those details on Handshake. Additionally, you'll have the opportunity to submit your feedback with the survey after the session. Please share your thoughts so that we can continue to improve. With that, I am so excited to introduce to you today a familiar face and a great support of WGU, Aaron Ward. Aaron has joined us for our last Career Quest in January, where he shared some great insight as well. And we are so glad to have him back today to share about the internship programs at Emerson. Aaron, with that, I will go ahead and pass things over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody for taking your time out of your day to kind of hear me talk about Emerson, as well as the opportunities we have for your early career opportunities like internships and co-ops and things like that. So thank you for that. A quick introduction for me. I'm an HR generalist at Emerson at the Marshalltown location. At our location, we have anywhere from about 30 to 40 co-ops/interns every year. So that's kind of what my primary role is, to recruit for them, as well as then manage them when they get here for their HR contact. So now let's get into a little bit info on Emerson as a whole. You're probably wondering, what is Emerson? And I'm going to give you a quick breakdown. So first of all, Emerson, at a glance, we are an international company. So we have sites all over the world, manufacturing locations, 130 locations throughout all of the world. We were founded in 1890, to give you an idea. Our corporate headquarters is in St. Louis, Missouri. So that's where that's located. Last year, we did 17 billion in sales. So that kind of gives you an idea of how big the company really is. We are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So that means we're the top 500 companies in the world. So basically, if I remember right, we're in about the top 200, 250. It always fluctuates depending on all the different companies and how well we do every year and things like that. So here's some other general information on us as well that you can kind of take a glance at. One of the figures I always try to bring up, it's not on this slide necessarily, but we are in 90% of all nuclear power plants throughout the world. So we're really big into making our parts for power industries and all the different types of industries, which my next slide will show you the different industries we are into and give you visual representation instead of just, figures and graphs, if that makes sense in a way. Our employees, we have 74,000 employees worldwide. So again, that fluctuates depending on if we acquire another company within Emerson or if we divest a company as well, depending. So that always fluctuates a little bit there. So let me get into the next slide, which shows you a broad scope of all the different industries we are tied into. So a lot of our parts are used for building vehicles, medical industry, food and beverage, renewable energies as well. So we're really into the power industries as well as the technology industries on the back end side. So at our location in Marshalltown, just a quick glimpse would be, we primarily make pressure control valves. So valves and stuff like that for our different industries. But we have all sorts of different products that we do make for these industries. We're not like maybe an Apple or Google where you're going to see us out and about. We're a little bit more behind the scenes. But if you pump your gas at a gas station, one of our solutions is being used to allow that to happen. That's amazing to see. Or a vast majority of paper mills have our product in there. So if you're jotting down notes on your during a class, that'd be something that one of our solutions also manufactured or helped manufacture. So it's kind of cool to be able to be a part of that. The next slide here is just a quick footprint on our actual segment of the company. So flow control is our segment that I kind of work with primarily. So our Marshalltown location is that red star, if you can see that. And then all the little other blue dots are all the other sections that are part of what we manufacture So it's just in our tiny section that gives you an idea of how many different locations there are, which is amazing if you want the opportunity maybe down the road after you get into your career. Hey, I would love to work in maybe Europe or Asia or South America. There's opportunities just in this small segment, and there's even more opportunities like the earlier on I showed you the 130 different locations for manufacturing sites. There's even more. So that's kind of nice to have that a part of any company to be able to kind of have that mobility. So now let's get into the Emerson co-op program itself so you can kind of understand what's the difference between a co-op, an internship, and what opportunities we have and things like that. Okay. So why a co-op? So a lot of people ask why a co-op. Let me kind of differentiate between a co-op and an internship, first of all. An internship is primarily 3 months out of the summer, give or take, 2.5, 3 months. And then a co-op for us is primarily about 7 months. So we have 2 rotations. One rotation starts in January, usually the middle of January, and then they'll finish up first or second week of August. So you have to take off a semester of school usually to allow for that 7 month period to be with us to kind of get more hands-on experience, things like that. The second rotation starts in the middle of May as well, and then you'll go till first or second week of December, depending on what works for your schedule. Okay. Again, I know a lot of people worry about taking a semester off, but you get real world experience, especially as engineers. That's a big focus for us as engineers or business majors or even the IT side. But it's more opportunity to find your career path. If maybe you're in business and business is broad, there's so many different areas. Maybe you get a internship or co-op in supply chain and you realize, hey, it's a cool part to be a part of this, but maybe you want to try out marketing now or something. Maybe you find out that that's not what is the best fit for you long term. Sometimes people understand that, or sometimes you find out this is a perfect opportunity, perfect career path I want to do. I definitely want to make this and stay in this career path for my major. So that helps you because when you're in college and you're going for the classwork, that's one thing. But when you actually get into the real job and day to day, it might be a little bit different. So that's always good to have that. Applying the theory and learning that you had throughout your class schedules and your classes that you've taken, you actually get to use it in real world scenarios. That's awesome to be able to do that. Just to be able to see that. Developing additional skills and technical skills. So a lot of our co-ops will get certifications while they're here. Some of them are with Microsoft, some of them are with internal certifications we have as well. That's really good. I know a lot of engineers love the opportunity to be able to write reports because these are not something necessarily they get as much experience during school, and they get to write real reports that get posted internally for us, and sometimes even externally. And some of them get to work on projects that their name's tied to this product that was developed. So they're working on new development of products. That's cool to be able to see that. Networking. Networking is huge. I wish I realized how big it was back in college, where it really matters who you know, because if you have great relationships with the people around you, it opens up doors for different opportunities down the road, and you never even see it coming until later. Like, oh wow, I didn't realize having that great relationship allowed me to maybe get in front of somebody that would allow me to get a promotion or at least work on a great project. Things like that. It's cool to be able to do that. Stand out to when it's full-time employment time. It's hard to pass up a resume that has almost a year of experience. If they did, let's say, a co-op, an internship, that's basically a year of experience. And most employers, when I go to employer panelist meetings, they all say the same thing. We look for experience over everything. So if you have that experience of almost a year already when you graduate, that just proves to us that you already have what it takes to kind of be a full-time employee. You know the basics, you know how to go about it, and that really helps you when you're trying to look for that full-time role after you graduate. So co-op versus internships, I kind of briefly mentioned on some of this. It depends where you get a longer period. I mentioned the 7 to 8 month period for it, and then the 3 to 4 month overall in terms of internship and co-op. In-depth learning, I mentioned that a little bit too. Quick turnaround though for internships, that's the hard thing. It's hard to really get into the projects if half that time you're spent just training to learn everything, and then you only get maybe six weeks to really actually apply what you learned at that company. So that can be hard there. Deeper networking opportunities, yes, great great opportunity for networking for sure for a co-op, just because you get more time in the different departments, especially at Emerson. We push for you to learn all the different departments because we require presentations by all the different departments. So that way you have a face in front of this department. So a lot of times co-ops or interns, they'll reach back out and be like, I'd love to do a second co-op. This is pretty common with us, and try a different department out. So that's a great opportunity for that as well. Working fewer hours, sometimes internships, you're not even a full-time employee. Sometimes you're only working 20 hours or 30 hours, which is sometimes good if you're taking classes, but not as good as if you really want to get into the career path that you're passionate about. So you got to keep that in mind. Full-time employment opportunities, definitely. We use it as a farming mechanism for finding full-time. This is what we do because we already know if you're a wonderful co-op or multiple co-ops with us you've done, we already know you're going to be a great full-time employee. So a lot of times we make job offers as long as we have something available for you. So, and then may or may not have to do with your majors. A lot of times internships, this does happen where sometimes internships, they say they're business or engineering related maybe, but maybe you're not really given the opportunity to actually apply your skills because they treat you kind of like an intern and not like a full-time employee. We make sure we always treat our interns and co-ops just like a full-time employee. Once you're trained up, you're working on the same projects as everyone else, which is awesome because you're getting that experience. So that's something we push for because we want to make sure that it's beneficial for both parties, that we're getting a worker that's helping our workforce as well as you get the experience that you want. So it's a win-win situation. May paid or unpaid. Usually internships are paid anymore, but my internship back in the day was unpaid. So sometimes they're not, but usually they're paid. And then tuition freeze. Yes, some people worry about co-ops. What do I do for tuition? It does freeze during that period of time. Sometimes there's stipulations for scholarships and stuff, but we usually can work through the university and make sure everything's good. And of course, it's paid as well. So that's always a good thing. Emerson experience versus others. So we treat our employees just our co-ops just like full-time employees. Big thing for us to focus on that. Real projects, yes, you own that project. Your name's tied to that project. So that way, even if you graduate, you can always know it, or you can look back that your name's on that. It's wonderful to see that. Soft skills, you get to learn a lot of people skills because Emerson knows how important it is to have people skills. Presentations are actually one of the biggest things they push for. I know not everybody likes doing them, but it's important to be able to communicate well what you're trying to get across. That's a hugely important skill to learn. So make sure to take some time to learn that. Ability to learn information outside of what your job scope is. Yeah, so we do like job shadows and things like that to make sure that you're able to have more knowledge than just your job itself, that you can try out different areas of the company or have partnerships because we work a lot of times with other departments as well. So we want to make sure that you have that outside of your job scope to learn different areas and kind of stretch you a little bit too, learn different skills. Job shadows, yeah, I mentioned that a little bit just already. And then mentorship opportunities too. There's a lot of individuals, co-ops, and interns that find mentors throughout here. It doesn't have to be necessarily your manager. It could be somebody else in your department. They're always willing to help out and kind of mentor you. So never be afraid to ask questions. I always tell interns, if you don't ask, you'll never know. So you have to make sure you ask. Community involvement is a big one because the Marshalltown community, like the Chamber of Commerce, they put on events during the summer for all the interns. So when we have all of them here and they kind of overlap, they put on like a scavenger hunt, which was cool, all throughout the city. So they got to do a scavenger hunt. That was really cool. And then they do some like after hour events. So like events where they can meet and greet other interns from other companies here in town. So it's not just networking here in Emerson, but all the different companies are located locally. So that's awesome too. Corporate housing, we do have corporate housing and benefits. So if you need benefits, you can enroll in our benefit program during your time here, as well as housing. We have corporate housing because we get a lot of interns and co-ops from across the country. So it's good to have that opportunity for that. And then, like I said, for the other benefits that we'd have is like a 401k. We do have that. Busy work. There's no busy work just to give you busy work. We want to make sure we have real world problems for you to solve because we want the best out of our employees, and what better way than having you solve real problems. But those are kind of some of the big things I wanted to cover there. I'll break down some of the actual events actually I would like to cover. in the next slide. So these are some of the photos of different events that we have and things like that. So on the top left-hand corner, that's the Flow Lab. We have the world's largest privately owned Flow Lab here in Marshalltown, Iowa. That's a picture of it. This is awesome. So a lot of engineers or business majors, they get to see this and be a part of that and see that where all these massive tests go on there. It's cool to be able to see that. So that's kind of a cool thing there. We do a lot of tours of the different facilities here, as well as other facilities too around us. We did a power plant tour of the power plant here in town as well, just to kind of see our product in the plant itself. So that's kind of cool there. We have a lot of lunch and learns as well, where different departments will come in and talk about what they do, or different ERGs with this, which are employee resource groups. So show different groups you could join. That's always a nice thing there. Learning courses as well, different learning courses or certifications you can get throughout your time here. Job shadow opportunities. We want to make sure you have job shadows that offer opportunities. We require at least one, but we encourage more, just because if you can try out different departments or different areas of the business, you can get a better idea of maybe I'd like this more, or maybe I should switch into this. Or maybe you just find out, yeah, I definitely don't want to be in accounting ever, or whatever it may be, It's kind of cool to be able to do that. Mentorship opportunities, I mentioned that a little bit already. Employee resource groups, next slide, I'll get in a little bit more detail there. Volunteer work, we do require at least one volunteer session here in town. This year we did the ARL, so we'll change it up usually every year, but we like to do something fun with the community where we're giving back, and it's not just work related, but showing that you need to be a good individual in your own area that you live, because you got to take care of it. You got to take care of the town as well as where you work at too. It's good to be a part of the community. Co-op group activities, we do a lot of fun stuff too. So the first week that you're here, we have like a co-op kickoff. That's where we play a bunch of games. We kind of outline the whole program. And then also you get to know all your different co-ops so that you can kind of build those relationships long term. Because you're going to be spending time with them especially if you're on corporate housing as well. They might be next door neighbors to you. So it's kind of nice to have those relationships right off the bat, to be able to hang out with them, or if you have questions, kind of group up with them. I mentioned team activities as well. Every department has all sorts of different team activities. So like sometimes there's softball leagues, there's volleyball leagues, all sorts of different competitions and things they do with different departments. And all the departments always go for an outing. So that's why like they might do go-kart racing and different things like that in Des Moines area or the surrounding area. So that's fun too, that they do all that. Here's some of the ERGs that I mentioned. So employee resource groups that you can join while you're here, or at least hear a presentation to kind of have a better understanding of it. So we have all sorts of different ones, as you can see here, like the veteran one. I work with them quite a bit for trying to find good qualified candidates for some of our roles. But yeah, different groups you can join. You don't have to necessarily be, let's say, a veteran or anything like that. You could just be somebody that wants to support these different groups and be a part of them. So it's kind of nice that we have these different groups to be a part of and to kind of work with them. Women's Impact Network, I work with a lot of them because they love university outreach. So they like to get involved with the university outreach, which is fun if you like to do that type of stuff. And then positions we have available. Normally I would have a list of positions. The reason why I don't is because they're not posted yet, but we will be posting them in late August, and that's when I would, email them out. And if you are interested, you can feel free, to reach out to me. But yeah, usually positions we have are anywhere from, I would say, 20 to 40. It just depends on the year. And these are anything from business, IT, engineering. It's a wide range of different positions depending on what you're looking for. For business, it'd be like marketing, supply chain. Sometimes we'll have a one-off for HR, very rarely, unless we have like a project. But that's just at our location. There's even more throughout Emerson. So make sure to check out our career website, because we primarily focus on co-ops at our location. But there's other locations like down in Texas. They primarily focus on internships. So if you do prefer internships, we do have those as well. And then even other locations like in Minnesota, there's internships. We have sites also in Colorado. We also have sites in Mansfield, Massachusetts, all over the country. Even at corporate office, they have interns and co-op opportunities there too, which yesterday, actually, the CEO of the company did a webinar with all the interns and co-ops. He spoke to them. He spoke to the ones at corporate in person. They were there in the room with him, but he wanted to kind of give a speech and talk to him about because how he got started in the company was actually he was doing his he originally applied for one of our co-ops when he was in undergrad, but he wasn't selected, funny enough. But then he applied during his MBA and was selected for a co-op with us. So then he stayed with the company and he's CEO of it. He's been with us, I believe, 29 years. So crazy. It's kind of cool. But I'll kind of leave some time here for questions. That way I can answer anything maybe you guys have questions or yeah, kind of go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin, for sharing that great insight there. Um, Feel free to use the chat if you have any questions. You can drop it in there, or if you'd like to come off mute, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you as well. We do have a quick question in the chat already. What is the process to move to a different department? Is that option always guaranteed, or are there opportunities to transition into a full-time role?
Yeah, so a lot of times, let's say if you're a co-op or intern and you're finishing up, it's kind of hard for us to just open up a role in that same department sometimes. So a lot of times we'll see if another department has an opening at that time, and it's an easy transition from a intern into a full-time because as long as you're a great applicant, a great individual, a great, co-op or intern, we try to make that as easy as possible. It's just a matter of whether we have something available at that time. That's the hardest thing because sometimes there just isn't anything available and it's like, oh shoot. But yeah, it's an easy transition for that. It's not hard at all. And a lot of people do move around in the company just to try out different roles. Also, or maybe they start in one location, but their family might be, let's say they start in Marshalltown, but their family might be down in Texas. Maybe they work in Marshalltown for a year or two, but they're like, I'd like to move back. So they just wait for the right opportunity and then they can move back a little bit closer. So that happens too sometimes just because it makes sense long term to stay with the company. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's relatively easy.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I think what you mentioned earlier about being able to try things out just to know or get a feel for what
Mhm.
you're passionate about is really important. Any other questions? Feel free to drop that in there. All right, we have a question here. Is there a link to opportunities for military veterans? You guys have that on your webpage?
Yeah, well, any opportunity is open to veterans. We love hiring veterans. I know for here in Marshtown, even the city, the county themselves will give you 2,000 for a veteran just moving to the county. So that's kind of nice as a veteran. You can get that, and I have the card for the VA for that. But yeah, any position is open. Obviously, I would say supply chain a little bit more common because there's a lot of supply chain slash logistics uh, with military vets. That's a pretty common role. But really anything, as long as you have that skill set or experience that we're looking for, feel free to apply to any of the positions or reach out.
Awesome. Great questions here. Next one here. What's the process if you are selected for a co-op but live in a different state? Do you offer relocation assistance?
Okay, so how this would work is we don't give relocation assistance, but we'd give that corporate housing. So basically, let's say one of the pretty common ones is Missouri, because we recruit down there quite a bit. So let's say we make the job offer, you accept, and then obviously you say, hey, I need corporate housing. We have you fill out a form saying basically which one you'd prefer, and then we slot you a housing one of the because there's like three different apartment buildings. It just depends on which one we have available. And then you get slotted that, and then all you have to do is show up on the day for move-in, and then the housing is covered. The majority of it's covered. There's a slight portion taken out to help cover like help utilities and stuff like that cost, but for the majority of it is covered all by us. But it's as easy as that. Now the actual moving itself, you're gonna have to drive your own vehicle or have your parents help move you necessarily. But the housing itself is relatively easy. It's kind of like the dorms in college in terms of how easy of a transition it is, I guess. But they are traditional like apartments, so that's kind of nice, and they come fully furnished, which is really good. So you don't have to worry about bringing a bed or any of the furniture. Everything comes furnished. It's just a matter of bringing like clothes and utensils and stuff like that for eating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. I know some of the prior companies that I've learned about, they'll have co-ops move, but you're kind of responsible for making that move and paying for those expenses. So the providing housing is very great there. We have a question. When is the best time to put in applications?
Yes, the best time is as soon as I post them. So as soon as I post them, put in an application. But I would say if you want to actually get to the next step, which is an interview, um, I would strongly recommend finding a contact like me, emailing me directly, because otherwise we get hundreds of applications, I'll be honest with you. And as an HR partner, we don't have to, as long as we don't open up the application, we don't have to necessarily like follow up anything more than when we close close the requisition, which is just a generated automated email saying, hey, you wasn't selected. So most of the applications we don't open up unless we meet them at a career fair or sometimes we will screen some apps on there real quick to see if there are any good ones. But we don't have time to look through 400 applications. So you want to get ahead of the stack by finding a point of contact. So like an HR person or a corporate recruiter, that's the best way for you to kind of ensure a strong chance of it getting to the next step, which is an interview.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, we have a question from Anne. She asked, will there be internship or co-ops posted in the main careers page, or are they located somewhere else? So I was on your page. There's a little
Mhm.
green button at the bottom that says explore internships and co-ops. I think if you
Yeah,
hit that link there, it should take you to the open internship and co-ops opportunities.
that's correct.
Next,
But they
okay,
also are on general job shirts too. They will populate. There's just nothing up right now, but they can be
okay,
searched both ways.
perfect. And you mentioned August would be the time frame that they'll push those through.
We're just in the final approval process, and then once that gets approved, I start the process of posting all the positions. So late August is the goal, and they will be posted by late August.
Okay, we have a question here from Wesley. Are there co-op positions open to remote work? If no, oh, the relocation assistance, yes, that's provided in the housing. But any opportunities for remote work for co-ops?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. Not really for your first co-op rotation, but like we have one this year. He already did a co-op with us on site. So he came back to do an internship with us and he's fully remote. So he's from California. He goes to school out in RIT, which is in New York. Kind of weird how, but he does fully remote this time around. But that's because, you know, he knows the company. He's been with us before. We're a lot more flexible when it's your second time around, especially when we already know you're a wonderful worker. But the first time around, no, unfortunately, just because we want to build that company culture. We want to show you what it's like to kind of be a co-op or intern with us because it's fun. It really is fun being a part of it because there's so much you get to see and so much you get to be a part of you kind of need to be there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. Another question, what makes a candidate competitive? How does a student with no relevant experience increase their odds of an offer?
Yeah. One big thing I would say is, let's say your resume is good. Most of everybody's resume is good because they use usually their career services. So that part's, let's say, taken care of. Then it's just how can you communicate? How can you talk? How can you kind of present yourself? So one good thing is, I know you guys are virtual, so maybe you start an email with me, let's say, with your resume. Okay, you have it written well and everything like that. But what I would say is the next step would be, most people don't do this, be like, could we schedule a time to talk on the phone? Or a quick Zoom meeting. And the reason why I say that is because talking on the phone or Zoom meeting is a little bit more personable than just an email or a text or anything like that. And you want to get as personable as possible, just because that builds a connection with the person. So I know it's outside of a lot of people's comfort zone, but if you can do that and build that connection with the person, you have a better shot of getting the position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, awesome. Next question here from Bianca. Is the company flexible with their full-time employees if they wanted to go back to school?
Yeah, we have programs for people to go back for like MBAs or masters for like engineering. We have some people go back for their doctorates in engineering and things like that, or different areas. That's pretty common actually. So it just kind of depends. They are flexible with it. One nice thing about our company is very rarely you'll see people doing overtime. Occasionally they have to, but very rarely. We're very much a big promoter of work-life balance, and the reason for that is because first of all, we know if we're trying to develop new products that are at the cutting edge of our industry because we have the market lead. We need to make sure our people are rested and aren't just working, but that they can think creatively. So you need that time away from work to be able to rest and spend time with your family to be able to think that way.
Awesome. We are at time here. Do you have maybe one more minute for a last question? right? Let's see. Do you have to be a student at the time of a co-op, or can you accept new grads as well?
Unfortunately, for a co-op or internship, it would have to be a student. You have to be
Okay.
enrolled for that. I wish we could, but unfortunately, we can't.
Okay. One last question. Which locations primarily offer the internships and co-ops?
Okay, so the main one, like from Marshalltown, would be the one for co-ops we primarily focus on. But if you've been with us before, then we offer an internship. The rest of the locations, for the most part, like Minnesota, that would be internships. Texas, there's two sites down in Texas, like McKinney, Texas, and then I forget the other one off the top of my head. Those both focus on internships. And then Mansfield, Massachusetts, they do co-ops like we do. And then I know Boulder, Colorado, they do internships. So mostly internships when you get out in broad. Emerson, as well as corporate does internships as well. We focus on the co-ops just because we like to have more time with people, build those relationships. If that makes sense.
Yep, yep, perfect. Well, any other questions that come through, you can always email us or we'll follow up with you to get you those resources as well, along with the recording. But we have reached the end of our session here. So we'll send the recording along with some resources and the survey. We really appreciate it if you could take a moment to complete that. And Erin, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the great insight and innovation happening at Emerson. I know our students were very eager to join today's session, and they got great questions and engagement going on. So thank you so much for your time. I know it made a great impact, and it's always such an honor to have you come and share here at WGU, and we look forward to learning more. We hope you enjoyed this morning's session. Don't forget to keep an eye out on upcoming sessions as well, and wishing everyone a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you. Take care.